It's 9:03 a.m. There is no longer any doubt that America is under attack.
To questions about what led him to request the August 6th briefing.
Ed, I asked for the briefing, and the reason I did is because there had been a lot of threat intelligence from overseas, and so part of it had to do with the Genoa G8 conference that I was going to attend.
8 of the world's most...
Dr. Rice, would you please rise and raise your right hand? You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
What the August 6th PDB said, and perhaps I should read it to you.
We would be happy to have it declassified in full.
And what was the title of the memo?
I believe the title was Bin Laden Determined to Attack Inside the United States.
You actually publish a book that says that the President of the United States, on its title, the President is inviting the next attack. Isn't it true that the President you worked for invited the first attack by having no idea what was going on with Al-Qaeda? You just admitted that when you were hit on 9/11, you just said, we didn't know who hit us. You said we didn't know who hit us. You were told who was going to hit you before we were hit on 9/11, and your administration invited the first attack for which you should live in shame.
Of course, we should mention back in February of 1993 was when that bomb went off in the garage of the World Trade Center, killing 6 people, injuring 1,000 people. And that, of course, was an unbelievable scene, but compared to this
is what they intended to do back then.
Minor. Let's go to Bob Hager, who had...
Atlanta. A Palestinian radical is on a fundraising tour detailing his dark vision of jihad.
Blood must flow. There must be widows. There must be orphans.
Detroit. This event is hosted by a group called the Islamic Charity Project International. One of its main speakers is a blind Egyptian cleric calling for Islam to rule the world.
We conquer the land of infidels, and we spread Islam by calling the infidels to Allah.
In Chicago, Pittsburgh, Tucson, and elsewhere, the radical preachers insist that the jihad will succeed.
Oh, brothers, after Afghanistan, nothing in the world is impossible for us anymore.
This Arab preacher is carrying his message of hate into the American heartland. But on Christmas Day, here at the city's convention center, a very different kind of spirit prevails. This footage shows the annual gathering of the Muslim Arab Youth Association. A TV reporter decides to see what's happening.
I had discovered there was a radical Islamic convention with groups representing every single organization that I had read about, but never suspected that they were present in the United States.
In an auditorium filled with supporters, the speakers call for a holy war or jihad against Jews and Christians. They blame the West and Israel for oppressing Muslims around the world. The organizers are even selling children's coloring books such as this one, extolling martyrdom. The reporter calls his contacts in the FBI counterterrorism department. He describes the scene.
There's Hamas, there's the Islamic Jihad, there's the Muslim Brotherhood. They're making speeches in Arabic. They're calling for jihad. Are you not aware of this?
But in cities all across America, extremist groups are busy recruiting followers and honing a message of hatred. who want nothing more than to come to America and blow up buildings. A Pakistani Airlines flight from Karachi lands here at Kennedy Airport. Seated in the first-class cabin, Ramzi Youssef. He hands the cabbie a slip of paper with an address, 552 Atlantic Avenue, Brooklyn. The driver takes him here to the Al Farouk Mosque. Youssef lights the fuse with a cheap cigarette lighter and speeds off. at 12:17 p.m. The bomb rips a 7-story hole right through the tower's core. 6 people are killed.
It became clear that this was a declaration of war, and it was a campaign that was being waged and a campaign that was being planned.
To the letter, it states, "Our calculations were not very accurate this time. However, we promise you that next time it will be very precise. And the Trade Center will be one of our targets."
And from that moment on, Ramzi Youssef vowed that he or his operatives would return to New York and finish the job he'd started in 1993.
January 6, 1995. Mastermind of the World Trade Center truck bombing, Ramzi Youssef has relocated here from his native Pakistan. As Youssef cooks up explosives by the sink, the concoction accidentally ignites. It attracts the attention of National Police, who sees the laptop. Teams of hijackers would use commercial jetliners as missiles against landmark buildings within the United States.
They had up to 10 Islamic terrorists training in U.S. flight schools. That plot was well in motion, and Ramzi Youssef had it all on his Toshiba laptop. They had up to 7 targets, including the Trade Center, the Pentagon, a nuclear facility, CIA headquarters, the Sears and Transamerica Towers, and the White House.
Mendoza insists that he shared all this information with the FBI.
They literally jumped out of the cars, ran up the steps, kicked in the door of his hotel, and he was laying in bed.
They arrest Youssef and take him into custody. His uncle, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, is in another room of the same Al-Qaeda safe house. But the uncle walks away into the shadows of radical Islam's underground network. And it now becomes Khalid Sheikh Mohammed's mission to carry out the idea developed with his nephew for flying commercial planes into American landmarks. He's back here because the U.S. and the UN have pressured the government of Sudan to end its cozy arrangement with the Al-Qaeda leader. They kick him out.
So he arrives in Afghanistan in the early summer of 1996, and what does he do? The first thing he does is retreat to a camp outside of Jalalabad, and he writes a very long declaration of war against the United States.
Bin Laden calls for a new
attack.
holy
The really
war.
outstanding thing that sticks in my mind about this is that he is on the same message today that he was in August of 1996 when he declared war.
Inside a tent in a remote compound in southern Afghanistan, Osama bin Laden tapes an interview with ABC News correspondent John Miller. With the tape rolling, he declares war on the United States.
He declared war on the United States. Yeah, you and what army?
We do not differentiate between those dressed in military uniforms and civilians. They're all targets in this fatwa.
Before agreeing to the interview, bin Laden insisted on knowing what questions he'll be asked and whether the program would be broadcast in prime time.
It was his coming out party as a terrorist leader. He needed to introduce himself to the United States.
Not, he threatens more attacks like the 1993 truck by Pakistani Ramzi Youssef.
We anticipate a black future for America. If the present injustice continues, it will inevitably move the battle to American soil, just as Ramzi Youssef and others have done.
Bin Laden said many things that at the time, I have to say, sounded a little hyperbolic and unlikely.
Osama bin Laden makes good on his threats. It's been less than 2 months since his televised declaration of war on the U.S. A bomb-laden truck explodes outside the American embassy, tearing the facade off the building. 5 minutes later, a second blast nearly levels the U.S. embassy in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. The twin attacks kill more than 200 people, including 12 Americans. Many of the victims are Muslims.
We captured the individuals involved. They confessed almost immediately to having been Sunnis and having worked for Osama bin Laden and having been members of Al-Qaeda.
Bill Clinton's presidential daily brief includes a warning. Al-Qaeda is planning to hijack a jetliner. Newark, New Jersey, May 29, 2000. Marwan al-Shehi, the hum 5 days later, ringleader Mohammed Atta also arrives through Newark. Ziad Jarrah and Hani Hanjour, a 29-year-old Saudi who is already licensed in the U.S. as a commercial pilot. He begins taking lessons here at the Florida Flight Training Center. By mid-August, Jarrah, Atta, and Shahid all pass their flight tests. The FAA grants them licenses as private pilots. So they enroll in advanced training on simulators which replicate the controls of a commercial aircraft. By the end of 2000, they have enough skills to guide one into a target. Mohammed Atta, Marwan al-Shehi, Ziad Jarrah, and Hani Hanjour, the 4 men who have trained to crash hijacked planes into American targets, are living in plain sight in the U.S. 70 miles away at this Air Force base in Tampa, members of a highly classified U.S. military intelligence program meet. The team, codenamed Able Danger, uses supercomputers to track Al-Qaeda operations around the globe. Intelligence data reportedly uncovers a link between Atta, Shehi, 2 other hijackers, and a terror cell operating in Brooklyn, New York. But military lawyers do not let the Able Danger team pass the information along to the FBI. Since the men hold valid U.S. visas, they are considered off-limits to military intelligence. Wave back. Then, several hundred pounds of C4 explosives hidden under a tarp detonate. The blast shreds a 40 by 40 foot section of the Coles hull and almost sinks the ship. 17 crewmen are killed, 40 more injured. The suicide bombers are obliterated. Investigators recover only a few of their teeth.
We will find out who was responsible and hold them accountable.
But in the waning months of his second term, President Clinton takes no military action against Al-Qaeda. It is a blow to the morale of the nation's anti-terror forces.
There was mounting frustration at the fact that no one was taking action to eliminate the threat to America. I think there was a tremendous sense of, you know, these guys just don't get it. These guys meaning policymakers.
protect and defend the Constitution.
January 20th, 2001. George W. Bush is sworn in as President of the United States.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
At the local FBI office, Field Agent Ken Williams sends a memo to his superiors in Washington. He's seen a number of Middle Easterners with ties to radical Islam enroll in Arizona flight schools. Individuals of investigative interest who may be in a position to conduct terrorist activity in the future. The memo reaches FBI headquarters in Washington and the Bureau's counterterrorism unit in New York. The report doesn't reach the Bureau's upper echelons until after September 11th, and lower-level FBI staff does not act on the information.
Should we have stopped all counterterrorism investigations and taken and interviewed the thousands of flight students in Phoenix? I mean, I don't know. We didn't have the resources or the personnel to do that.
It's a particularly big revelation. We had downsizing of our government in the 1990s, including in the national security and intelligence area, and we got caught a bit flat-footed after 9/11, and we had to rebuild our capability. Thank God that we had a number of very qualified retirees and people who'd been laid off earlier who could come back into government service relatively easily, and that's what we did.
50% of the analysts at the CIA have been hired since September 11th.
That's right.
That's extraordinary turnover.
And it's not turnover, it's addition. It's expansion. Right?
Your father and Mr. Bush failed to absorb the warnings screamed at you by the intelligence community.
Answer questions about the PDB.
The threat reporting that we received in the spring and summer of 2001 was not specific as to time, nor place, nor manner of attack.
One of the problems with I found with the presidential daily briefings is that most of them, frankly, I guess it's, could I use the word garbage, is that too? Was sort of a tabloid headline. And then if you looked at the points, there was very little, if anything, there that was what Lee would call, the president would call actionable intelligence. The rest of it, it was, there's not a lot there to chew on. There really isn't.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't.
September 11th, when 3,000 Americans were killed on U.S. soil. If the guy had just paid attention to his August 6th presidential daily briefing in 2001, it might have been a little bit different.
What did you do? Nothing, so far as we can see.
It lifted me and...
What are those big, heavy things falling at a rate that a piece of paper would not fall? Oh my God! No way. Like that, Caroline, do you see that? Do you see this thing?
Yeah, I see it. I mean, who's to say it's not like a chair?
Please be a chair.
Regardless, it's gonna be so dangerous at that base. Obviously. Wait.
That the president you worked for invited the first attack.
Director of the FBI here in New York, Mr. Kallstrom. I'm sure you've never seen anything like this. Do you have any information that might be helpful to us?
Well, not particular information on this tragedy, but certainly what an incredible tragedy. And, you know, all of us in law enforcement and prior in law enforcement have talked for years, and the public has seen the hatred in the world. They've seen the bombing of the World Trade Center. They saw the conspiracy to blow up the tunnels in the United Nations and the FBI building back in the 90s. They've seen the bomb at the USS Cole and the bombings of our embassies in Africa. So, I mean, we've known for some time now that this hatred exists.